Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Wajaha and today we're doing another deep dive. For those of you who are new here, I am a doctor, but I love to make crypto videos, and one of the series that I do is the deep dive series where we go really in depth looking into a protocol, covering as much as we possibly can. So this is going to be a long one. Sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and enjoy. Today we're covering Reserve Protocol. We've got a lot to cover, as we always do, so let's get straight into it. So what are we going to cover today exactly? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Fiat and traditional stablecoins that we have in crypto today. We're then going to move on to Reserve, kind of what Reserve is, how it works, some of the different products that they have in the sense of the RTokens and RSR. We'll touch upon the curve wars, and of course, as always, we'll have some of the bear cases as well, bull and bear cases this time, and a nice little summary at the end. Feel free to pause, grab a pen and paper, make some notes if you need to, because a lot of this will be very informative, and you may want to do so as well for your own research. So let's start off with talking about Fiat, and I think many of you watching may have got a little bit of experience with kind of why we even invest in the first place. And one of the main reasons is because our purchasing power, not just only for the dollar but for all currencies, diminishes year on year on year, and you can see this trend going from the early 1900s all the way to today, where you can see that $1 today was worth 25x that of what it is today back in the past, and you can see that this is only going to continue. And I wonder what this chart will look like in 50 years time. Perhaps a dollar in 50 years time is going to be what $50 is today. Who knows really, but what we do know is that this is all because of money printing, and the purchasing power of all of our currencies. For me, I'm in the UK, so the pound sterling is a very similar picture. It's not very good because ultimately it means it's very difficult for us to save. How can we save money? If imagine you're someone who was saving money in the 70s and 80s. Well, whilst you may have saved a bit of money, you've lost more than 50% of that value in that time frame. So it's really difficult, and so kind of that's why we do investing in the first place. But to be honest, we need assets that are stable, that hold their purchasing power, don't we? It's a big problem. And if we scroll down here, we'll see a number of different countries: Venezuela, Pakistan, Lebanon, Turkey, Nigeria. I wonder if any of you know the answer to this question. You can drop a comment down below. But what do all of these countries have in common? Well, one thing for sure, they have very high inflation. In fact, all 5 of these countries have inflation above 20% a year, which is absolutely ridiculous when you compound that over a 10 or 20 year period. You're talking thousands or hundreds or thousands of percent that your currency is devaluing. And a question that you may ask is, why do I care about this so much? Well, for those of you who don't know, I am Pakistani. My ethnicity is Pakistani, and I'm very fortunate that I was born in the UK and I've always been brought up here, so I haven't really had to experience a really difficult economy. But I know deep down that many of my extended family who are probably still living in Pakistan today may be going through this. In fact, millions of people, in fact, billions of people are going through this, especially when you take into the fact that as of March 2023, so a few months back, there are 25 countries in the world with inflation above 20%. That is horrendous, because people living in these countries just cannot survive on their savings. They're living paycheck to paycheck. But what you'll find is even from the start of their paycheck till the end of when they were going to get their next paycheck, the rate of their currency has changed so much in that time that things are a different price altogether. I find that absolutely ludicrous, and especially when you look into the fact that some of these countries have actually had inflation much, much, much higher than 20%. It is really sad to see. And this isn't just affecting a few million people. If you actually add up the number of people that live in these 25 countries, you're talking billions of people. I think it's a real big problem that we have in the world today, and I'd like to think that crypto can solve it, and that's essentially what we're going to talk about today. Just going down here, look, this is something that I like to check from time to time, just seeing as though I am Pakistani. You can see that the rate of the pound against Pakistan is basically how we want all of our crypto charts to look. Unfortunately, Pakistan has 300-400 million people living there, and so this is a sad reality, because not only, you got to remember, not only is the pound depreciating like this, the pound is depreciating like this, but when you've got another currency depreciating at a ridiculous amount, I mean, look, we're talking just the past 15 years only, less than that, in fact. It is really, really sad to see, and this essentially means it's impossible for these people to build wealth. It's impossible for them to forget about saving something for their children. It's impossible for them to save something for themselves. These people are stuck in this life, and we need to do something about it, and perhaps crypto can do something for it. One thing that we do have that can somewhat alleviate the pain that some of these people have is the stable coins that we have in crypto. And whilst I think it's great that we have kind of some decentralized stable coins, or even to some extent some centralized stable coins, at least it gives a mean for some of these people that live in some of these countries to have some exposure to currencies that don't inflate as much, like the US dollar. So, perhaps people in Turkey or Lebanon, they can use USDC or USDT, and that does help them alleviate some of the stress that comes with inflation. However, what we do know is that these currencies are also not as good. Well, firstly, that some of them are centralized, and especially with the likes of Tether and USDC with Circle. Secondly, they're backed by Fiat, so essentially they have the same issues. They are still inflating themselves to zero, and their purchasing power is diminishing. I have written a few other points here. Sometimes there is a bit of dubious backing. Whilst we may know about the liabilities, I think sometimes the assets backing them, some of these anyway, I won't say any names, but some of them perhaps are a little bit dubious. Most of them are US dollar backed, which I think for the most part isn't really an issue. But I mean, if you're someone like me who lives in Great Britain, I think it would be nice to have larger pound sterling stable coins, especially if we're able to kind of spend them in real life, which is a little bit more tricky with USDC and USDT, although there are some things being worked at the moment. They're not really backed by any other assets. Like I said, they've got off-chain reserves. There's no real proof of the reserves. There's no on-chain governance, and revenue sharing, of course, is non-existent. So there are a number of flaws with stablecoins as well. I think we know that these stablecoin products can be very profitable. Tether themselves made over $1 billion in Q1. None of that revenue went to the USDT token holders though. So yeah, just another point to make there. So moving on, let's talk about what is Reserve Protocol. Reserve Protocol are essentially trying to fix this problem. This is the problem that they are trying to fix. And they're a permissionless protocol to build and deploy asset-backed currencies, and we call them RTokens, and we're going to talk about that later on in the video. They focus on yield-bearing stablecoins and asset-backed indexes as well. So again, we're going to talk about all of this later on in the video, but that is the problem that Reserve are trying to solve, and I think it is probably one of the largest things that I think needs to be solved, and if they can do it, which I really, really hope they can, props to them, because I think it's going to change the lives for billions of people around the world. Anyway, Reserve, they've got two main front ends. They've got the Register DApp, the decentralized application, which is for builders and users like me, really, to create, mint, redeem, and stake these different RTokens. And they have the RPay app, which is built for consumers predominantly in Latin America, and they can send, receive, and shop with the stablecoin called eUSD, electronic USD. And again, we'll talk about this as well shortly. So here we can see kind of what the Register app looks like. This is essentially the interface. You can access this yourself if you go onto the Reserve app, website, sorry. And this is the RPay app, which I've just written here. 500k consumers. Pretty nice. I did actually download it on my phone, but it wasn't all in Spanish, so I didn't really get very far with it. I've still got it downloaded on my phone though. I can't really use this, but for people in Latin America, you can use this. And so I think there's 18 countries, 18 countries that it's supported in at the moment. And I think perhaps the US fairly soon. So let's talk about R tokens, and I think we're going to spend the bulk of this video talking about what R tokens are. They are fully asset-backed tokens, and anyone can create one of these, and the revenue of these assets can be shared to the creators as well, which is fantastic. So they can be backed by anything from stablecoins to your favorite ERC20s, but also real-world assets as well. The mintable and redeemable at any time via the various smart contracts, and I think this does work really well. Well, why is this a solution? Well, just think about the different currencies that we can make with this that, help to not only reduce inflation, but perhaps even increase your purchasing power over time, especially when you back your assets by very, very strong assets. So you back your tokens with strong assets, you will get a good currency. I did pinch this from the reserve page, which basically tells you kind of how things work. So each R token is governed separately, and each R token will have its own entire governance system. So an R token is mintable and redeemable for its entire collateral at all times, and it can be backed by anything. So you can see here, if you want to back it by USDC or BUSD, you can do. If you want to back it by Paxos USD, you can do. You can back it by Bitcoin, Ethereum, you name it. You can choose what you want to back your R token with. RSR is the governance token for the reserve protocol, and you can use RSR to over collateralize this collateral. So, instead of just being 100% collateralized, if you want to have an extra margin of safety, you can do so with RSR, and as well as that, you can have some predefined emergency collateral to be used to replace faulty collateral in the case of default as well. That's pretty much the architecture of how the R token works. We've got quite a few R tokens, and we're going to spend a bit of time talking about the three main ones at the moment: eUSD, ETH Plus, and hyUSD. We're going to go through each of them shortly. But the main point I just want to say is anyone can create an R token. You can see here I was creating Moogle coin, and let's see if this works. Why is the picture not going bigger? Anyway, I'm sure you can see this on screen. You can see that I was trying to back it with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you can do this yourself. You can easily just go to the Reserve app. You can do this yourself, the Register app, I should say. I think it's yet to gain big traction yet, but there are a number of unlisted R tokens I was able to see that a number of other people have kind of created. But like I said, not many have really taken off just yet. They can be minted and redeemed permissionlessly anytime, anywhere in the world. All you have to do is interact with the smart contract. So as long as you've got access to the internet, you can basically use something like this. And they don't have any issuers, so there isn't that issue of censorship, corruptibleness, error-prone middlemen, that sort of stuff. It's completely permissionless, and I think that's fantastic to see. So let's talk about the R tokens. Well, you can see that they really only just started getting traction not that long ago, actually. We're talking about March 23. And you can see that since then things have gone really quite good, especially with the likes of eUSD, which we're going to talk about shortly. Market cap wise, eUSD around 20 million, ETH Plus just under 2 million, and hyUSD also above 1 million. By the way, I think these figures might be slightly different by the time you're watching this video, so go and check them out. They may be higher from when I've been recording this, so go please have a look as well. Let's talk about the R tokens now. So we're going to talk about ETH Plus, and this is a Ethereum derivative backed by both STETH, which is the staked derivative from Lido, as well as RETH, which is the derivative from Rocket Pool. So basically we've got the two largest liquid staking derivatives around, with Lido's STETH and Rocket Pool's RETH, 50-50 backing, and of course you've got to remember that these are yield generating, so these are earning the Ethereum staking yield, which is approximately 4 or 5%. And where does this yield go? Well, it actually goes to the ETH Plus holders. So essentially this is a wrapper with a 50-50 backing of the two largest decentralized, the two largest liquid staking derivatives. Most of this yield is thankfully going to the ETH Plus holders, with a small portion also going to the RSR stakers who are helping to over collateralize it. The idea is to focus on safety first, hence why they've picked the two largest LSDs around, and they do have a curve pool which is very highly incentivized, so you can earn some very, very good yields with this. You can see yourself, wrapped ST-ETH and RETH 50-50 balance, and 95% of the revenue going to the R token holder themselves, which you can claim. And the RSR stakers, so people who are taking their RSR governance tokens and staking them to give some extra collateral, which is a total of 2%. So ultimately, ETH Plus is actually over collateralized 102%. They earn 5% of the yield as well, so it can be nice for them as well. Here we've got the ETH pools. This is ETH Plus against ETH on Curve, currently 24%. You can obviously go to somewhere like Yearn and basically just automatically deposit. You don't have to worry about the Ethereum gas fees that way. And that's also gaining a fair bit of traction, also with a huge 20+% yield there. So, I mean, fantastic that you're able to earn such incredible yields in DeFi. These are highly incentivized at the moment, and we're going to talk about that when we go and move on and talk about Curve shortly. So what's the point of this? Well, firstly, diversification. I think it's nice that you don't have to have just your exposure into Lido's ST-ETH. You can kind of have RETH as well, and you can have it both in one token. Of course, it's very nice to earn extra yield, and this plays a big role with the LSD narrative that we've got going on at the moment. I think Ethereum-backed products are very important, and I think most of us have now realized that building products around the Ethereum staking rate is very beneficial. And so this is a really nice R token that I think has really gained some traction for now. This is basically the interface of where you stake your RSR to over collateralize it. You can see exactly how much has been staked, and it's currently offering an 11% rate. So yeah, when staking your RSR, you're putting your RSR at risk in the case of a collateral default. So you have to bear that in mind. But you are obviously able to earn some great yields with it as well. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. Let's talk about electronic dollar, eUSD, and I think this is probably the most exciting one given that there's more stuff going on here. This is a dollar-pegged stablecoin, one-to-one backed by other stablecoin derivatives, and these are derivatives on both Aave and Compound, which are two of the largest players in DeFi, with 100% of the yield going to the RSR stakers this time. Now remember, before only 5%, this time 100%. eUSD is available on the Ethereum blockchain, but also on MobileCoin, which is this new chain that have partnered up with Reserve that are able to really introduce some quick payments, fast payments, and MobileCoin are able to interact or integrate with mobile apps. That's the whole point of it. One of them is Signal, which I believe has 100 million users. Correct me if I'm wrong there. eUSD is also the native currency used in RPay, and that's the app that's being used in Latin America at the moment. So yeah, some information about MobileCoin: end-to-end zero-knowledge encryption, fully compatible with mobile devices and application, which I think is fantastic, especially if we are creating kind of payment softwares. We want them to be on mobile, with settlement in less than 5 seconds, basically next to zero transaction fees as well, and the transaction fees paid in eUSD itself, so you don't really need any other coin for gas, and they've got some good green energy stuff going on as well. So nice to see that we are actually creating some actual infrastructure for these payments to go through. So what is eUSD actually backed by? Well, if you go to Aave, you'll know that Aave and Compound both are a lending market. And what you can do on Aave is that you can lend your assets. You can lend USDC, USDT, etc. And when you do so, you get back another token in your wallet. You can try this yourself and have a look. You'll get an AUSDC or an AUSDT, which is essentially an Aave representing token representing your position here, which is this yield generating token, because obviously USDC is earning just less than 3% here. So if you deposit your USDC here, you're earning 3% a year, but you're getting a new token in which this yield is kind of going into. And essentially that's what this eUSD is backed by. Electronic US dollar is actually backed by this SAUSDC, SAUSDT, which is both the USDC and USDT tokens from Aave, but also the same thing on Compound. Compound again is a similar product to Aave with the lending market. So you can get CUSDC and CUSDT, and ultimately that gives a 25% of each of these assets. USDC on both Aave and Compound, 25% each, and USDT on Aave and Compound, again another 25%, so giving you 100%. So essentially you've got 50-50 exposure to both Tether and USDC, and also against both Aave and Compound. And of course all of these assets are generating yield. All of this yield is going to RSR tokens, so essentially it's pretty much real yield coming directly to the RSR stakers, who are kind of helping to really over collateralize this. You can see that the backing is 100%, but we've got quite significant RSR coverage as well, just for that extra precaution, and that's probably because the yields are pretty good. Again, very, very highly incentivized in DeFi. When we look at the eUSD frac space pool, we're looking at a 13%, which is fantastic. And if you compare it, if you pool it with the high yield USD, which we're going to talk about shortly, incredible yields, 30+% on your stablecoins, which is a fantastic farming opportunity. So, what is the point here? Again, we've got over collateralized stablecoins, which is good for safety. On the mobile coin chain, we've got self-custody, basically optimizing stablecoin payments on mobile devices, less than 5 seconds, basically almost next to zero transaction fees, and obviously you're paying gas in eUSD as well. Lovely yield opportunities, and it's built on top of the two DeFi giants being Aave and Compound, and I think this is a really nice stablecoin that we've got here. So that's eUSD. Obviously it's nice that it's taking it's growing, especially with the RPay app. Lots of people are using it, and I think the fact that it's in 18 countries already is a fantastic thing. Hopefully that continues to grow, and I think when we get kind of more adoption of something like this, we will see kind of more people using this day to day, and I really like what we've got going on here with electronic US dollar. Moving on to the last R token that we're going to talk about. This is the high yield US dollar. Essentially the aim for this is to be some sort of savings account, a way for users to hedge against this inflation that we've talked about at the start of this video, or to at least mark or beat inflation, basically, is the aim. It's marketed as a high yield savings account, as I just mentioned. Again, another dollar peg stablecoin, but this time the underlying assets are a little bit different, and here the yield, rather than going directly to RSR token holders, is going mostly to the actual R token. So most of this yield, 81%, is going to the actual holders of high yield USD, with a smaller portion going to RSR stakers. What is backing hyUSD, or the high yield US dollar? Well, it's actually USDC, DAI, and some convex tokens that we're going to talk about shortly. And again, just like we've talked about before, FUSDC is via the app Flux, which again is a lending market, and again you can see that the yields here are a little bit higher with compared to that of Aave, but all of this yield this time is going to the USD token holders. So that represents the FUSDC and the FDAI. People may ask, what on earth is this? And I think crypto, especially DeFi, does have a few tokens here which make it a little bit difficult to understand. Thankfully, I have some experience with Curve and Convex, and so I kind of know what's going on here. This is this Magic Internet Money 3 curve pool, the one on the bottom, I should say, which is the 3 pool and Magic Internet Money, obviously earning a decent yield at 9%. And the other one is eUSD against the frac space pool. Again, earning a decent yield there as well. So these are both convex tokens. So those LPs are staked in convex, and they are obviously generating some good yield in curve and convex rewards, perhaps even FXS rewards. And in this case, these are going directly to the R token holders. So yeah, really nice. Again, you can farm with your hyUSD, you can do this on Curve, or you can go to someone like Yan and just deposit, sit and forget. So you can do that. So does this work really well? Well, yeah, I think it does work quite well. I think yield is consistent. You've got a constant stream of Curve and convex rewards coming in. I think there are some obviously risks here. I think part of them is around some of the assets that are backing it. I mean, Magic Internet Money did have a depeg not too long ago. Thankfully, it did recover. But I think these are some things to worry about, or some things to think about for sure when it comes to this. Of course, if you want to earn higher yield, you got to take on more risk. So that's the way the game is. But yeah, you do need to consider this, and I think there's probably a little bit more risk here than compared to eUSD. However, you got to remember, high yield USD is earning some pretty good yield. 81% of the yield is actually going to the hyUSD token holders, and so you have to bear that in mind. Thankfully, like I said, you can earn some very good yields, and if you're able to sustain this for a little while, you should be able to, if there were any issues, depegs or anything like that, it shouldn't be anything to worry about because these are over collateralized as well. RSR is the governance token. It obviously earns yields from some of these different R tokens that we've talked about for those of you who stake. And the main point is not only for governance, but also to provide the extra protection. So users can stake RSR, earn some extra yield, of course, but also take on, being that extra collateral in the case of a depeg. And with the possibility of an RSR war, especially if there are a number of people wanting to go and make R tokens, perhaps staking might be one of the best ways to build a stack. I'll leave that to you to decide. All R tokens are independently managed by the RSR stakers. So each of these, they have their own governance system by the stakers who are obviously there to provide that governance role there. So the benefits, of course, you can participate in governance, you can earn extra yield by providing that extra security, but there are some risks as well. Firstly, there is volatility. This is a volatile token, but we're not going to go into that too much today. I think what we will talk about is, this other risk where if an asset depegs, your staked RSR will be used as collateral. And we saw this happen not too long ago with the USDC depeg that happened in March. eUSD, which is, as you can remember, backed by USDC and USDT via both Aave and Compound, did actually depeg. That's because USDC depegged. I don't know, for those of you who remember, USDC went into the mid 80 cents. That was because of the Silicon Valley Bank issues. And obviously eUSD being backed by USDC was affected, but thankfully it was able to recover much quicker than others, and also recovered before the banks reopened. And that's because RSR stakers who are over collateralizing and being that safety cushion was slashed and used to fill up the hole. So you can read this: during the USDC depegging event in March 23, the RSR over-collateralization and safety collateral mechanism was battle-tested as, the Aave USDC and the Compound USDC collaterals basically went down in price. And essentially that meant that because they were auctioned off at 95 cents on the dollar, that left eUSD only 98% collateralized. And the difference was made up by 8 million RSR tokens, which are auctioned off. But I think it was great because it resulted in a much quicker repegging to $1 than USDC or DAI or Frax actually experienced throughout the actual event. And you can see this in the chart yourself. You can see the price of eUSD recovered much quicker than some of the other stablecoins that were affected. Moving on, let's talk about the curve wars, and we're going to talk about this because this is what really caught my eye. Reserve doing a $20 million investment into the Curve ecosystem. They wanted to allocate towards Curve, Convex, and StakeDAO, and these are pretty much Curve governance tokens or Curve indirect governance tokens. And the question is, why have they done this? Well, there's a number of reasons. Firstly, liquidity. I think liquidity is the main thing. Liquidity is king. We've seen that time and time again. And with more liquidity, you're basically able to attract more users. You're able to have more volume, less slippage, much better price stability. And I think when you do get that, I think it generally will attract a lot more users. So what are the plans for Reserve? Well, at the moment, you can see that they're really highly incentivizing some of those pools for those R tokens. The likes of eUSD, ETH+, the high yield USD pools, they've got more emissions, more CRV emissions, more CVX emissions. That means more rewards. That means more likely to attract liquidity. And, for a stablecoin farmer like myself, when I see, safety, but also high yields, I'm definitely going to go towards that. So Reserve are really playing themselves well. I mean, of course, we did see a number of issues with the Curve ecosystem not too long ago. I mean, I think we can be confident that those were separate issues caused by Viper exploits rather than smart contracts. But I think generally Curve is here to stay, and Curve is the home for stablecoins. If you want to build a stablecoin, on chain anyway, you really got to use Curve for it. And I think Reserve are doing a really good thing there as well. One thing that I like to do is also kind of have a look at some of the audits. It's really nice to see some of the audits that we have over here. The Trail of Bits audits is one that definitely caught my eye, being one of the more stronger ones for sure. And these audits are very, very expensive. So you know that Reserve obviously had to do a big investment to really get some of this stuff going. And I think it's good from a safety perspective to see some of this stuff. Of course, that doesn't mean that there can't be another exploit in future, or there can't be some sort of issue, bug that's not really found at the moment. But I think it does help to kind of see the variety of audits, and you can go and look at them yourself on the Reserve website. Moving on, we're going to talk about the RApp, which has got 500k downloads already. Really, really good. 5 billion in volume. They have actually got an OFAC license in Venezuela as well, which is really good to see. And again, as we've talked about from the start of this video, the aim is to protect users against hyperinflation volatility, especially when we see in certain South American countries like Venezuela, where inflation is above 20%. At least they can get access to currencies like US dollar backed stablecoins, but also then able to earn a yield to basically beat inflation now, or at least mark up against inflation. So yeah, it's nice that they've got an app. It looks really nice. The interface looks easy to use, easy to send payments, and I did actually see that there was a paper quoting Reserve in the IMF, which I thought was really cool as well, so I thought I'd just include that there. But yeah, the RApp used by a lot of people. I wish we had something like this in Asia as well. Maybe Reserve can do that in the future, but I think some of the countries in Asia suffer the same issues that the South American or Latin American countries have. And I think that would be a really good place to go next as well. Perhaps even some of the African countries too. We've seen the likes of Nigeria also have very, very high inflation. The team, of course, is also an important thing to look at. They have this over 200 people actually organized into tribes, guilds, and squads. You can pause the video and have a read here as well, but essentially there's different people working on different things. I think one person who I've been in touch with is James, who's been very kind to me and kind of guided me on finding some of the resources here, so props to them. I have watched a variety of podcasts and videos from all members of the team, including Nevin as well, yeah, so go check them out. There's lots of stuff on the Reserve YouTube page. They've got 20,000 subscribers there, which is pretty good to see. And you'll find lots of conferences from ETH Denver, but also a variety of other places, and you can really learn a lot about really what the mission that Reserve is trying to solve with the products that they have as well. So yeah, great team, and lovely to see. I think, as always, we should probably talk about the bull and bear case. So the bull case, I've made a few points on screen here. I think RTokens are continuing to grow. We've seen the chart of the market cap going up and to the right, and we've seen kind of some of these new intricate assets coming, like ETH Plus, high yield USD, which offers much higher yield than that of some of the other stablecoins around. Can RTokens offer products, not just for institutions, but for normal users? Well, hopefully. And I think that would be really good to see, especially if we can see more of these RTokens coming out. Maybe we're going to see real world assets come on chain. In fact, we already are. And I think building with stablecoins and growing in sectors like real world assets is going to be a really good thing for Reserve. We've seen the RPay app also growing quite significantly in South America. There are billions of people who would also benefit from this in the likes of Asia and Africa. And I think there's huge growth opportunities there if they're able to kind of expand. And I think in real life, Reserve's RTokens are integrated better than most other stablecoins that we have at the moment. So I think the stablecoin industry is clearly probably one of the best ones to be around at the moment. We saw just a few days ago PayPal announcing that they're also entering stablecoins. Stablecoins are a fantastic business model, probably one of the number one product market fits that crypto has. and Reserve are doing everything they can to tackle the issues that we have with fiat currency. On the bear side, I think eUSD and hyUSD themselves don't really tackle inflationary pressures themselves. I guess you could say to some extent high yield USD does, but of course you do have some of those risks there with some of the tokens that back it. I think one of the issues that really stops it from getting hundreds of millions or even 100,000 users, which seems like what we've got in crypto these days, is the fact that we're using Ethereum mainnet. So when you are using hyUSD or eUSD at the moment on chain, you are paying a lot in gas fees. I think that will change with time, I'm sure, as we go cross chain. At the moment, RTokens have fairly low liquidity, but I like to think that that would change as well in future, especially with the likes of the curve incentives. It's only a matter of time before people take on that 30% yield. I think at the moment also there's not really much incentive to make your own R token. I'm not really incentivized to do it. Maybe other institutions will be. So yeah, we'll wait for that. I think the stablecoin space is also very, very, very competitive. Like I just said, we've got PayPal coming in. We've got the likes of Frax, DAI, USDC, USDT, and even some of even Curve, for example, have their own stablecoin. Aave has got their own stablecoin. So really, why wouldn't you use those stablecoins instead of the R tokens? That is a question that remains to be seen. I think the Curve wars are intense, and that kind of links with that. And when are we going to see real world assets? I'd like to think soon, but we don't have them just yet. And as I just mentioned, RPay is only for South America just yet. I think they definitely need to continue to expand in South America, but I personally would love to see them expand over to Asia and also Africa. So just to summarize, I think RTokens growing fantastic. They've got some really good ones with the likes of ETH Plus, eUSD, which is used on the RPay app as well, and hyUSD, which is basically helping with this high interest saving account kind of mechanism. Like I said, very good yields, especially with the curve wars, and I think they're only going to grow from here. Really, they've got a fantastic team. RPay is widely used, and crypto has a use case when it comes to using things like Reserve. Products are going, team is very competent, and I think they're building in some of the best areas of crypto to focus on right now, whether that's stablecoins, indexes, fixed products, the developing world. Things are looking good. So yeah, all in all, I just wanted to say I thank you to everyone who helped me make this presentation. Hopefully we can make some more content as well, covering the Reserve ecosystem. I think it's really interesting, right up my alley now that we've got the curve wars as well coming into this. And yeah, I think something that I wish the biggest success for. So that's all we're going to cover today. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, let me know your thoughts about Reserve Protocol and some of the different R tokens. What sort of R tokens would you like to see? Let me know in the comment section below, and we'll be back with plenty more content in the near future.